My name is Sabine St. Cyr. I'm the Assistant Director for the Magna Career Center and as well as the liaison to the School of Business. So if you're interested in business, I'm the person you're going to be speaking to help you in terms of figuring out that career action plan. And for today's purposes, we're going to talk about how to land that internship and most likely succeed in that internship, right? All righty. So degrees are great, right? We're here in Brooklyn College. You're all wonderful students. You're CUNY students. They're great. But your internships, they do make a difference. Definitely, they do make a difference. So with that being said, most university officials and employers maintain that partaking in one or more internships will set a student apart from his or her peers. Completing internships before graduating is integral to finding meaningful employment in today's market. Keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, we are all here as students. We're learning and getting theory and understanding, but the internship really are helpful because it gets you to the point of gaining essential skills that perhaps you may not get from the classroom. And that's why we're saying degrees are great, but the internships is what's going to set you apart and make you more competitive versus other people who haven't done them. Okay. So before we begin, let's talk about what is an actual internship, right? So an internship is just short-term work experience in a professional environment. So let's say you're interested in being an accountant, for example, and you're not too sure as to whether you want to do audit or you want to do tax. So having that experience in the workplace, it could be virtual or non-virtual, right? You're learning a little bit in terms of the professional environment, the company's culture, how do you do your project on time before the deadline? You're communicating with other people. So just keep that in mind, as an internship is the short-term work experience in a professional environment. So what it does, you emphasize on learning versus earning, right? So the whole point is for you to ask as many questions as possible throughout your internship. So if you don't ask questions, that means you're not really giving your chance to learn as much. So make sure that it's always about the learning versus the earning. You learn new skills. Of course, Brooklyn College is amazing. You're going to get skills in classes, but you'll probably learn new skills that perhaps you will not get in class. Maybe you learn more about SPSS. You learn about other softwares that the companies are using at this real moment to help you move forward. You gain insider contacts. That is key, right? The reason why I say it's key to get insider contacts is for the simple fact that that when you're applying for now full-time jobs or even for scholarships or other internships, you want to have a good reference. And by doing an internship, you could start building those references. You start building those contacts, and perhaps you might start building a mentor in the process of that. And then last but not least, you're going to clarify your career goals, right? Internships could do two things. It could say, this is the path for you. You love it. It's great. And the second part could be, this is not for me. And it's good to do that now as a student versus after graduation. And then you enter a field that you say, this is not of interest to you at all. And now you have to recalibrate and things like that. It's easier to use the student hat, the student card, and learn and see what makes sense or does not make sense for you based on your goals, based on what success means for you and everything else like that. So an internship can build a professional resume. That's definitely number one. Number two, helps you build a sense of professionalism, right? So let's say you haven't had the chance yet to have a part-time job, or you worked before, or you haven't been in corporate setting as of yet. This helps you build a sense of professionalism. It creates a network of professional contacts, like I mentioned in the last slide, where you could have other supervisors, you're meeting other people outside of your Brooklyn College who are going to be part of your professional context. They could tell you about where their field is going. They could say, hey, here's what I'm doing in addition to, and that's a great way to create professional contacts that way is through your internships. It helps you develop leadership and interpersonal skills, a really great thing employers seek in their future interns, and as well as after interning, is your leadership skills. Are you able to take initiative? This really helps you when you do an internship to start building those set skills, because I know all of you guys are going to continue from entry level to mid levels. You might be the future VPs, the future CEOs of companies. So you're starting building those leadership skills early on. It defrays college costs, of course, if it's paid internship. Earlier in the chat, we were talking about who wants paid internships. So in case you do not have financial aid or scholarships, the paid internships are really helpful in terms of offsetting that cost of the college, or if you want to pay for a vacation early, if you want to save later, whichever the case, maybe you could use that money towards your leisure and things like that. You're allowed to explore a career profession, right? Because just because you do an internship in one field, that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to stay. This is your particular trajectory of your career, and that's it. It does not mean ends all means all. You might say, okay, I explored this, but I want to explore something else. And that's what the internship really affords you when you do one. Of course, last but not least, you establish those references. So your supervisor that you're going to have, your peers you're going to have, your other people in other departments within the company, these are people you're going to start to get to know in a professional manner. And they could be the ones that are going to write you stellar recommendations, be really good references as you look for other internships and, of course, jobs to get you to your next step. And of course, last but not least, it increases your employment opportunities. What that necessarily means, let's say you completed 2 or more internships. When you're looking for a job and they see that you've done internships, let's say you participated in SLC, for example, you're part of the board member, you're part of NABA, you did 2 internships. The company is going to take you more seriously. You're going to look more competitive in their eyes. And when you're in the interview, there's certain things you could talk about from your past experience to let the employer now have the opportunity to analyze what you're saying and saying, okay, we think that you may be a good fit. So just keep that in mind. So without further ado, I would like to introduce you to a person who is a Booker College student, is your peer, who did an internship, and I want her to be able to tell her her story. So I'm gonna pause the video right now, the slideshow, for us to have like a candid conversation.
Hi. I saw my face. I was like, oh, that was me.
That is good. Absolutely. Thank you so much. I think it's always good to have a student perspective because we're all as students in the same boat. Maybe some of you have not completed an internship yet and you're trying to figure it out. And I know you can listen to me. I give great tips, but it's always great to hear from your peers that went through the process. So I wanted Clidade Florville to really talk about her experiences so you guys can get a better idea of what could possibly be for you. So, Clidade, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, I'm Clidade. Um, I transferred to Brooklyn College in 2019 fall. Yeah. I'm a lower senior now, studying accounting 150 program. I interned during busy season at PwC, and I will be interning at KPMG during this summer. That's it.
Awesome. So you already did an internship. So can you tell us, like, how was your application process? Like, what did you do to land those 2 internships?
Okay, I don't remember how I started going to the Magna Center, but I was just there almost every day. I met Andre and I met Sabine, you, and then Natalie. I don't remember how we met,
Got
but I received an invite to join an event. I just did. It was like last year, I think. This is how I started, but the whole process, I didn't really think I would get an internship. I was doing the work, but I didn't think I would get an internship. How I did, I attended all the events. I went to get my resume checked. Sabine and Natalie, I would say they held my hand through the process. I asked a lot of questions. I didn't believe in asking questions at first. I used to think it's like I it made me seem like I didn't know anything. But that was not helping me at all. So I start asking, I start getting to know more people. I went on LinkedIn, ask more. I went to the events. I joined NABA and Accounting Society. So all the events they were having, I was there. Sometimes I do double events. One on my laptop, one on the phone. I stay smiling, ask questions, and I realized they knew my name somehow because I attended the events. They saw my name. I was there. They saw my face, although I didn't talk, but I asked question on the chats. Never talked. Uh, and one time somebody said, "Hey, how do you say your name? Clidade? I realized you always here." So I was like, "Yes, somebody see me." So I kept on going, and I got two interviews with I had three with EY and PwC and KPMG. I had both. Um, I got an offer for KPMG and PwC. I already said I did the interview, I mean, the internship for January for PwC, and we'll have the summer one and then make my decision from there.
Absolutely, that's wonderful. So I'm going to dig a little bit deeper for students in terms of, let's say, whoever is interested in perhaps PwC. Um, can you tell us a little bit about what did you learn, right? Because earlier in the session, I talked about how internships could really help you learn new skills. Are there any new skills that you gained from that internship so far that you'll like to share with the students today?
Yes. What I learned was that, well, one, asking questions. I was scared. I thought when I started working, I wouldn't know anything. I didn't know anything. And I would seem, that's always my doubts, a little weird. Um, I was scared to start, always scared to start. And like, how would they see me? I don't know anything. Although they say they will train you and stuff, they did. We had a first week of training, but still, after my first week, I was still scared when I get the real work, real client works. Will I be able to do them? Type of questions in my head. But you just get to work, and the associates, this the person you work closely with. I asked a lot of questions I didn't think I would be able to. I asked a lot, and they just help you. You think you won't be able to, you think you're going to fail, but there's someone always willing to help. And what I would say is ask your questions.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah.
That's really good. So I think for students who haven't done internships yet, that's the whole point is your learning objectives. You're going to learn as much as possible.
Yes.
And this is across. It doesn't necessarily have to be a big four accounting firm. It could be a financial firm. It could be a nonprofit, government agency. Your goal is to learn as much as possible. And as they're training you and you ask the questions and you make sure if they give you critical feedback, you take that feedback. You don't say,
Yeah.
oh man, I hate this feedback. This is for you to be able to do the work well. And the more you continuously ask the appropriate question, when I say appropriate questions, there's a difference between you could Google something
Yeah.
and asking a question. So make sure it's just not questions that you could just Google on your own. After you finish Googling that question,
Yeah.
and then you have follow up questions, that's what you're supposed to be doing. So you could look like you in you're taking initiative, you're asking questions, you're moving forward. So now you could show them that you're able to do the work and you deliver those work, right? You do not want to be in a position. This is why I'm telling you guys this. Florida could even tell you students who do not ask questions and they just move forward and do projects and then they say, wait, this is wrong, and then now then you might get frustrated versus if you had stopped, take a pause, be humble. This is your ability to learn, use this ability to learn and move forward, and then they will appreciate it, right? Because sometimes when you're in the field you're so quick that you're not thinking about what you need training in, and it's actually amusing and helpful for whoever's going to be training you, for you to come with your questions, because they can't read your mind, right? But if you have a set of questions and they say, oh, okay, this is simple, I'll answer it, not a problem, that gives you the competitive edge versus others. Other parts of that, you might even have a part where your answers are already answered, but you could dig deeper with having conversations with your supervisor, right? So they could get to know who you are, what you stand for, and vice versa. That's very helpful in the future, right? Because earlier we talked about references. That could be a person as a reference for you. So just keep that in mind. So my other question for you, Cadet, is what tips do you have for students who are interested in internship and they just don't know where to begin? What tips, what are the top three things you think they should start doing now?
Um, Go to the Magna Center, get your resume,
I
get
didn't tell her to
that.
say that, but thank you.
I was a disaster. My resume, oh Jesus, it was bad. I just never stopped going. Did I make my appointments, worked with Andre, and that was in person. Started since in person and never stopped. I work with Sabine. I'm pointing at you.
That's fine.
That's one. Go to the events, beautiful people. The events. Show your face. And then apply and reach out to people like I would say, yeah. Reach out, say hi. Don't nag, but reach out. Yeah. I think that's it.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And just to add on, when Clarissa reached out, of course, if you guys are not familiar with, LinkedIn is a very good
Yeah.
networking professional place. It's like the Facebook, but for professionals. So if you have maybe a Brooklyn College alum that you say, wow, they have doing amazing work and I could outreach to them, but don't just click add to join as a request. Send a message and introduce yourself. Say you're a Brooklyn College student and you would like to join or add them into your network because like have a conversation. And then those are the people that I see students who done that are more successful with connecting with a person that graduated from Brooklyn College and saying, yeah, I could speak to you for 15 minutes and give you advice that perhaps you might not have gained otherwise, right? Because they'll remember when they were Brooklyn College students. I still get those messages like, hello, I don't know if you remember me, or the message like, I see you doing all this. Can you tell me a little bit more? I'm thinking about this field, but I'm not too sure. People who message me like that, I will respond much quicker to a person that just says, I like you to join my network. So just giving you these tips. So, and this is a good foundation to have as
Yeah.
you move forward, right? You don't want to start off and not be genuine in terms of how you're moving forward, because as students I want you all to have strong foundation. Like I mentioned earlier, you're going to be the future VPs and CEOs, so if you start with a strong foundation, it's easier for you to elevate yourself. Just keep that in mind.
I did a lot of overtime. It was busy season. Oh Jesus. It's good. It's good. But the sleep. I think the latest I stayed was 4 in the morning. Yes, it was good. And it's not all about how much you're getting paid. They make you feel like you're really contributing. I was doing some real work. I was happy. I didn't get any sleep, but I was happy because people are constantly reaching out, thanking you for helping, although you're getting paid and you're getting the experience, but you felt important.
That's great. She was answering like how during your busy season internships at PwC, did you do a lot of overtime? That's what she was
Yeah.
answering. She asked, how do you set yourself apart from other applicants?
From other applicants, I really don't know. I honestly, like I said, I went to the events. I didn't just go when I said reach out. I didn't just go and be like, "Hi." I ask the people like, "How are you doing?" I'm just checking on you. I don't do that every week, every day, or stuff like that. I try to make friends and also ask questions how I can keep going, move forward, or get some tips. Yeah, I guess that's out.
And I add to that because I've seen Cadell do these events with the different companies she was interested in. You don't have to, and then this is a combination of answering the question with room serve. She asks constantly applying and attending events can get exhausting. I know there's something called Zoom fatigue. We get it. How do you manage that while staying consistent? So be tactful. Like you have the list of events that you might say, okay, which makes more sense for me to attend? You do not have to attend all the events, but the companies you have the most interest in. And if you see
Yeah.
something that says there's coffee chats, there's meet one-on-one with the recruiter, those are the ones that you say, I better sign up for that, right? Because
Yes.
you get to have those one-on-one conversations. And Cadet actually did some of those. She did the
Yeah.
one-on-one with the recruiter. So they get to have an informational interview. So that's number one. And then being consistent in terms of collaborating, communicating. How do you stay apart from the applicant? Like what Claudette mentioned, she would email and say, just checking in, how are you? I attended this event, you gave me really good advice, and leave it as that. Maybe she'll reach out every 2 months or so, maybe three. It doesn't have to be a consistent like every week, because then the person's like, okay, this is something else I have to respond to. So use your common sense, right? You're a person, think about how would you want to be communicated with, and that tends to work in terms of communicating with these hiring managers or with these recruiters in the future. So I just want to be clear in terms of how you manage that. So with the career center, I would say we do have the calendar events. So you could choose to say, I want to meet this X company. I'm going to go here. I want to meet this X company, this recruiter from here. And these are the two events that I really want to make sure I'm there. And last tip for you all, Claudette said she didn't want to speak out loud, but she made sure she used to write questions in the chat. Make sure if the recruiters you're going to meet in the future and it's a group like we are right now, the
Yeah.
best thing to do is ask a question. If they say unmute yourself, muster the courage and ask and say your beautiful name, say your major if you have decided your major, and proceed to ask that question. They will remember that person versus if you're just attending and being a little bit more silent.
Yeah.
If you put yourself in just that position, that small thing really could elevate you to the next step because they'll remember you because you did that. Okay. So Claudette, so thank you so much for sharing your tips and letting the students get a little bit of insights of what you did at PwC. And we wish you the very best of luck with now your second internship with KPMG. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So I'm gonna now go back in terms of sharing my screen to now talk about other things in terms of how to find an internship. There are a variety of internship experiences for all majors and various forms of compensation regarding them. So they're actually paid, unpaid, which is about 50%. You could receive academic credit for that. So 3 credits, even 6 credits, 3 to 6 credits, depending on your department that you're part of. You could get stipend awards to complete an internship. There are international internships as well. That means you get to intern abroad in other country. You could do internships on campus, and of course virtual internships, like of course because of COVID and what happened, a lot of internships were transformed into being more remote. So keep that in mind in terms of various types of internships that are available towards you. You could do that in terms of what's available. Do 2 internships before graduating, which we mentioned earlier. Okay. So we talked about when to consider unpaid internship. You should consider unpaid internship when you think that you'll gain as much experience as possible. It could be the first internship you do to not build to look for another internship. Since 50% of internships are unpaid, we recognize that, we know that. It's better to get experience than no experience at all. So that's why I would strongly suggest all of you to pay attention to. So here's some questions you should ask yourself when considering an unpaid internship. Okay. Do you have experience in the field already? If you say, man, I don't have experience in the field yet, you might want to consider unpaid internship. Okay. Number two, will you have opportunities to expand your network, right? Because as you are probably seeing, an underlining message of what we're talking about is you are great as your network. The people who are surrounding you, who knows that you're good at what you do, tends to share more opportunities with you. They could give you references. So if you think this unpaid internship is going to expand your network, by all means, go for it. is this a reputable company, right? If you feel like they don't have any drama, right? And this is your opportunity to do research to say, okay, they don't have anything negative press. You're going to get a solid experience. That is something you need to pay attention to moving forward. And last but not least, does this internship provide training and exposure to the field that will be valuable for your career development? So if you think, okay, this is really going to give me the essential technical skills or the essential writing skills I need, whatever the case may be, if it's going to put me in a position for me to be as competitive as possible when it's time for me to find a full-time employment, you need to join and do that unpaid internship. So please visit tinyurl.com, paid and unpaid internships, for more information in terms of navigating how do you consider it and how to take steps to now proceed towards that process. Okay. So earlier on, we talked about the stipend award, member in the paid internship in the last slides. So the stipend award is the Magna Stipend Award. And we talk about if you're unable to afford an unpaid internship, because I know some of you may have to work, some of you might have other obligations. So we are aware of that as a office. So we do provide the stipend award for that process. The stipend award is for those who plan on interning, but the internship is unpaid. So that's number one. It is available for both undergrad and graduate students. This is an opportunity for funds for those who cannot afford to intern for free. Remember, there's paid and unpaid internships. The base amount of money you could get to do an internship is $1,800. Keep in mind, you could request for more money, but it goes in terms of the circumstances. What do you write throughout the application process? Okay. So for spring, the deadline is in October. And then for the summer and fall, the deadline is in March. Keep in mind, you do not have to secure the internship before applying to applying for the stipend award, which is amazing for you guys to pay attention to and see. Like, you say, I have the intention to do an internship, and you apply as early as possible. Keep in mind, for summer and fall is in March, and the upcoming deadline right now for the spring will be this year in October. And of course, here's the site for you to get a little bit more in terms of the application process, where to apply, all that good stuff. It's in tinyurl.com/Magna stipends. Now I will do a quick overview of international internships. They allow you to experience another culture, which is amazing. I know we live in New York City and we have a melting pot, and we are a privilege compared to other states, in my opinion, to really experience other cultures. But it is also an additional experience if you go outside of your comfort zone. Let's say if you haven't traveled as much, to go to another country to explore how do they work, what does work-life balance mean to them, what does work means to them, because each culture is a little bit different in terms of the work that you're going to be doing, how they even communicate with each other, etc. So you're allowed to experience an other culture, which is amazing. You prepare for the 21st century globalized marketplace. And what that necessarily means, we are all in a global market now. A couple of years, maybe in your parents' generation, it used to be all about particular secular in terms of communities and in America. But now everything is just, we really see, due to technology and everything else like that, we're like a good globalized marketplace. So this is preparing you for that if you do decide to do an international internship. You could earn academic credit, right? So the best thing is you're learning, you're receiving experience in other culture, you're gaining global experience, and now you get to earn academic credit. That's another plus when it comes to international internships. Of course, you're straining your resume. So when it's time for you to apply for full-time jobs, the first thing they say, I see you intern abroad. How was that? That's a great conversational thing, since your resume is your roadmap to an interview. So just keep that in mind. And then last but not least, summer is a really good time to participate in international internships, because most of the time, some students in Brooklyn College, you do not take summer courses. So this will be a really good time to be in an international internship so far. Okay, so where do college students intern, right? This is just a quick overview of small, this is not all of them, but where our Brooklyn College students have interned so far. So I'm going to ask you guys in the chat to see if you're listening and paying attention. Name some of these, if you see anything that you recognize off the bat, drop in the chat. Let me see what are the companies that you're interested in from this or even others. Someone says Deloitte. Okay, awesome. PwC. Okay, great. Marvel, yes. A lot of people have interned in Marvel before, so that's great. KPMG for Heart, like it. MTA, absolutely. ABC News, yes. Columbia, yep. So a lot of you, JetBlue, Google. All right. So as you can see, um, a lot of you guys are nailing it. A lot of our students actually have had the opportunity to intern in all those places you mentioned and what you see so far. So I'm surprised that some of you guys didn't say the daily news, but that's fine. ABC matters too. So these are just a couple of the places that there's internship opportunities, some are paid and unpaid, that you could be part of as well, since our Brooklyn College students are doing that. So the other question, right? Because you guys are preparing for your internships, you might say, Sabine, okay, these are wonderful companies. I'm glad that people have interned, but when do I start? When do I apply for the internships, right? When they're available every semester, ladies and gentlemen, the internships are available every semester. Some organizations have interns throughout the entire year, whereas others may only hire interns once a year. So research is number one in terms of keying and placing it out. So for example, you might say, okay, if I'm interested in internship right now in one of the big four accounting firms, I know that once it's August to that September, it's my time to start applying for those internships, right? So this is an example of how different companies look for interns in different time. Now, the other question might say, well, how long is the internship? The duration of the internship really depends on the employer as well as the student. But I would say usually it typically lasts one semester. So if you do an internship for the winter time, that's a semester. If you do an internship for the summer, that's another type of semester. But in case you do an internship for the summer, keep that in mind. Specifically for the paid ones, they tend to be full-time internships. What I mean by that, they tend to be full-time hours. So, which is mentioned in the third bullet point here, during the academic year, spring and fall internships tend to be part-time. In the summer, some internships are full-time. So as you're planning to apply for your internships in the future, you need to be very clear as to how many hours can you do when you would most likely do the internships. And I would just give a little hint that I think students don't pay attention to or know. If you do see a company have an internship for the fall or spring semester, and then you say, you know what, I might want to wait for the summer. If you see the internship opportunity for the fall, I would say apply for it. The reason why, because in the summer, everyone, it's not only a Brooklyn College thing, it's a CUNY thing, it's across the universities in the United States, tend to look for summer internships, and that makes it very competitive. But the beautiful thing about it, majority of you live in New York City. So if you find a fall or spring internship or even winter internship, I would say definitely apply for that, because that does help increase your chances to, in a competitive internship process, to apply. So just keep that in mind. This little tool and tip I think will be beneficial to you to pay attention to. So now that we talked about, here is what the internships are available every semester, etc. Let's now talk about what the employers actually look for. So employers look for primarily, of course, juniors and seniors, but don't fret with that, because a lot of now companies are looking for early freshmen as well as sophomores. They do have programs for freshmen specifically. For example, I had mentioned earlier in the conversation, City Year. We're going to have tips for how to apply for City Year Discovery Program. That's for freshmen. So they do have a lot of freshmen and sophomore and programs for you guys, for you to get acclimated with whatever the world would be, business, arts, whatever you're interested in to move forward. So keep in mind, in addition to that, related majors, if you have a GPA of 3.0 or above, it's amazing. Keep in mind that, yes, your GPA does not mean that it doesn't decide that if you're going to be the best employer or the best employee or not. That's not the case, but you want to demonstrate to the employer that you could at least maintain a GPA. It does help in terms of being competitive. And I say, if you could just do a minimum of 3.0, it does help you get to the loop, because at least it shows that you have a standard in terms of the workload that you could do in the field. So just keep that in mind. More competitive internships, employers look for, let's say if you did a part-time job, if you volunteer, if you're part of any student clubs. So for example, all of you guys might be are interested in business, so you should be joining SLC, you're supposed to be joining NABA, you're supposed to be joining Alpha Accounting Society, IBA, the investment club, whichever it is. Make sure you join clubs, but don't just say I'm a member of. If you really have a passion for it, if you could be part of the e-board, that's even more excellent. If you're able to do so, run that, participate in these memberships, because when the employers see that, that means you're taking an extra step in terms of learning more about the field of interest, having connection as well, because believe it or not, the members in these student clubs and activities are going to be further out in their career people. So this is a good way to start connecting, and moving forward. So just pay attention to that, okay? So according to now NACE skills, here's what employers look for interns, right? They want to know if you could communicate, not only in terms of verbal, but they want to know if you have the ability to write really well, right? So both in speech and writing with persons inside and outside the organization. I must stress the writing specifically now, since we're seeing a little shift in terms of virtual/remote internships. You want to make sure that you're writing to a point that is clear and is concise. So employers are looking at that a lot. In case you might see, you know what, my writing is not the best that I would like it to be. What I would suggest for you all to use Grammarly, you could use that. They'll review the work. It's not 100% like bulletproof in terms of writing, but some mistakes you may have, Grammarly would catch it, right? So just keep that in mind as you're writing in organization. As you're applying for internships as well, keep in mind some employers might ask for a cover letter, and cover letters are great introductions to who you are as a potential employee or intern. But also what the employers are looking at is how you're writing, right? How do you choose to choose the sentences in your syntax to convey a point? You have the tutoring center here at Brooklyn College. Have them review your papers, have them review your cover letter before applying. And of course, me at the center, I will also look at it based on content to help you in terms of your writing. So just keep that in mind as you're applying for your future internships. You want to work in a team structure, right? So a lot of people in the field wants to know if you could work in a team, right? Because there's a lot of pockets of groups. So of course you should be able to work as an individual, but your ability to work in a team is imperative for employers. That's what they look for. So if you've done projects, for example, in a team where you led something or you guys ended up doing really well in the project, those are things you want to start thinking about for your future interviews as you talk to employers, because they're going to ask you a question like, describe how you work in a team. All those things you want to take into consideration. Make decisions and solve problems is another thing employers look for. So let's say you're unable to meet the supervisor for whatever the reason may be, and you see there's a problem, find solutions to the problem. Don't say, hey, I see the problem, and do not articulate or say, here, I see the problem, but here's what I think we could do. If you have a solution-based thought process and express that, that really helps the employer to say, okay, we see that you're organized, we see that you're have the ability to analyze and move forward. So keep that in mind in terms of if you're asking questions, you say, I see this, have you thought about doing that? They will welcome that type of input, and that does help set you apart from others. You also want to be able to plan, organize, and prioritize work. Ladies and gentlemen, that's a star in terms of what you need to do in terms of your internship. They might give you 5 to 10 projects, and you might say, okay, let me work on that. If you're unsure, you could always take your supervisor to the side. If it's not if it's in person, if it's not in person, just email them and say, which one is the the most necessary for you. So you know how to prioritize the work, because you might have a supervisor that doesn't help you prioritize it. But by asking those questions, you're able to say, okay, here is the plan. And always make sure you do the projects before the deadline, because you never know, things might happen. So you are able to always provide work on time, robust work. And in case they need to give you feedback, you have time to now shift things around if you ask them for feedback prior the deadline. Okay. And then last but not least, you want to be proficient with the computer software programs, right? So if you know in your field that SAS is the thing to use, start looking at it. You could use LinkedIn has a really good form of getting essential set skills. You could put that in the platform. If you know Google Analytics is something else that your company is going to look for, you could go Google Analytics, Google that up, and then you could do those courses so you could be proficient in these programs in addition to the trainings they would provide you. Okay. And then also additional requirements, of course, depends on the employer and the industry. And then as you do your research, you could use Volt.com, you could use onnetonline.org, mynextcareermove.org to look at what other employers are looking for, what your industry is, and they'll tell you what technical skills you need, etc., based on additional requirements. So how do I prepare before even applying, right? You want to clarify your career goals, right? So meet with a career counselor. That could be me, since I'm the liaison to the School of Business, or any career counselor at the Career Center. We're here to help. We get excited to see you progress as students. So number one, meet with a career counselor, right? Number two, you want to conduct research regarding careers. So you could use, which I had mentioned before, onnetonline.org, bls.gov, and you could just type in the industry. Or if you are very particular in terms of the title, maybe you're interested in an analyst position, look that up and see what it means to be in that field. What's the correspondence going to be looking like? What's the technical skills they're looking for? All those things, you need to start researching those careers of interest. Number three, you want to define your goals. So we have an assessment called a color Q. You could take it, and then it talks about your ideal work environment. What does your ideal boss look like? What are your natural work related strengths? That's called a color Q, where you could take that assessment and start exploring your skills and values, and of course interests. Another thing you want to do is identify companies and industries of interest, right? Because you might say, I want to do finance, but what are the financial companies that you might do an internship for? Start building up that list. And Vault, VAULT, has a good comprehensive list already. So you don't have to start from scratch. You could just use what they have, their top 100 firms you want to look for, put that in, and then you could start looking at future deadlines, etc., of your interests for you to move forward. And then you could choose your major early. I know there's a lot of freshmen and sophomores here, so you guys have time before choosing your major. But the earlier you choose your major will be helpful in terms of moving forward. But don't say that's the end all be all. You have some time. I would rather you guys explore and do internships. And then based on the experiences that you have found before you explore, then you could make the final decision right after your sophomore year, since you have to declare it your junior year to be eligible for some of the employer opportunities for yourself. Okay. Participate in career panels, company visits, networking events, which I'm happy you are here today. You're doing this already. You're taking the step already towards your future goals. You're taking the step to do that career action plan by being here today. So I would say keep up the momentum. While after you finish talking about how to find an internship in business, and now you have the steps, now the next thing is like, you know what, I want to speak to these employers that we're going to have on April 22nd, where SLC Elena, who's the president, is going to talk to these employers and moderate a panel for people from McKinsey and SEO and Aon, for example. You might say, Here's what the employers are talking about. Here's what they're looking for. Let me connect with them by going to an event like that later on this week. So I want you to see how by going to events, you might say after going to this event, you meet with the employers, you get their contact information, you email them, you establish rapport. You might say, you know what, since it's Discovery Week, I'm even going to try my best to join SLC. That is something in terms of connecting your networking that you want to move forward with. Okay, so just keep that in mind so you could see the sequence of how things could progress for you as you're clarifying your career goals and getting a better understanding of what you're looking for. Okay, and last but not least, you want to get a mentor, right? Someone that's out, someone that graduated maybe 3, 5 years out, or even it could be your peer. What did they do in order for them to land that internship? What did they do to land that job? What are they learning? Where do they see the field going in a couple of years? These are all things you want to consider as you're speaking to people. I will just give you a tip. Do not, if you're going to email someone on LinkedIn and then you look at their profile and say, this could be a wonderful mentor, do not ask the person, can you be my mentor? The reason why I'm saying this is from experience. I see once you ask the person off the bat, can you be my mentor? They get a little bit nervous. I don't know why, what it is, because I think they see it as work versus, hey, can I speak to you for a little bit, 15 to 20 minutes? By doing that, they are more inclined to speak to you versus getting the mentor title. And as you progress, then you could say, hey, do you know you're my mentor? And they'll be shocked, but they already were doing it already unbeknownst to them. So that's just a little tip I will give you guys if you're asking people you haven't met before to be the mentor, to remove that word and say, do you have time to speak to me? And then you progress in that way. Okay. So as you're applying for the internships and things like that, you want to think about what does a strong resume include, right? Because that's what the employer is going to ask you for once you apply for the internship. Where's your resume, right? So you want to think about student organizations plan to take on leadership role in the college, the work or internship experience, the campus engagements, the student government, the student newspaper, whatever you're doing it on campus, you want to include that on the resume. Any volunteer that you've done, volunteer work, and of course, any type of career related events, conferences, panels, company visits, any skill building workshops. Let's say you use General Assembly or Coursera. Those are the CUNY 90-day challenge. Those things that you've done before, these are examples of what you could do to include in the resume to make it as impactful as possible for whoever is reading your resume for your internships could be aware of. Okay. So to build a great resume, you could always go to Magna Resume Guide, well, tinyurl.com/Magna Resume Guide or tinyurl.com/Magna Resume Template. So you could see other examples of the resumes for yourself. Okay. So the next question is, how do I get an internship? Right? Steps to landing an internship. Number one, the search, right? It's simple like that. You could use internship websites, specific industry websites, company websites. You could use LinkedIn, and of course, Hire BC. In case you're unfamiliar with Hire BC, if you all have access to BC Web Central, when you log into BC Web Central, you'll see the career tab, and that's where you're going to see Hire BC. So you could upload your resume. We do review resumes and give you resume feedback through Hire BC. You could upload your unofficial transcript just in case the employer asks for it in the website. And of course, you could apply for internship opportunities as well as job opportunities by using the Hire BC website. Okay. You want to network, right? Talk to your friends, your family, alumni, mentors, and even faculty. Keep in mind, you never know, your parents might be in the field of interest to you. Ask them, hey, can I speak to your aunt or whatever about it? Family members. So I know it's COVID right now, but if we have the pleasure of being together during Thanksgiving and everything is working towards our favor in the States, you might even have that conversation in Thanksgiving, like, what are you doing? How's the work going? And asking those questions to family members. That could be a great network right there that you might not have considered before. Of course, our alumni, our wonderful alumni, who are amazing that does give back to campus by communicating with students and giving them advice for them to move forward, right? And of course, your faculty, right? Your professors are a plethora of knowledge, and believe it or not, they have lives outside of teaching. So they have friends and other brilliant colleagues that are doing other things. So they might even introduce you to some of their colleagues based on the conversations you're having with your professors, okay? And then, of course, other steps, we just did a career fair in March. So the job and internship fair, they normally happen in March and October. Keep that in mind. Recruiting presentations. So if you see us emailing you about, hey, this is the event, this is when the employers are coming to recruit students. They're not doing these presentations for fun. They're doing that to get a number of students to apply for whatever things they're trying to fill. So that will be a really great thing to do in terms of landing those internship, having your presence be there and moving forward with that. Okay. Other important resources to help you land an internship are as follows. You could email intern@brooklyn.cuny.edu. You go to Hire BC, look at the videos, give you other tips from employers, from student perspective that tells you what they did for you to help with that. Internships 101, in case this is a reinforcer of what we talked about. We gave you the general knowledge, you gain insight from student perspective, a career coach perspective, but now this gives you the step-by-step process in case you want to get a affirmation with that. You could use vault.com. I had mentioned that earlier on in terms of gaining employers, looking at what other interns have said about other employers, what the employers have said about the interns, get an idea of what you're going to learn. You could use Vault. Vault is a very excellent tool for that. If you're looking for paid internship, which earlier I saw a lot of you guys wanted paid internship, go to tinyurl.com/top paid internships, and you could get a list of paid internships that you could apply for. And of course, subscribe to CUNY's weekly list of jobs, internships, events, and resources and more. The reason why I'm saying this is because Brooklyn College is amazing, but since we're part of the CUNY City University of New York network, you could look at that and see, oh, wait, there's an opportunity with Bloomberg. I'm going to apply for that. There's an opportunity with KPMG. Their deadline had extended for me to apply. I'm going to apply in that way. So you could see the weekly list of jobs in addition to using Hire BC as you're applying and helping you to land that internship. Okay. So let's say you did the full process, right? With the internships, you did your resume, you networked, you joined your student clubs, you did all that wonderful thing. You have a wonderful GPA above a 3.0, and you land after the internship. What happens next, right? You want to, after the internship, you want the employers to, they're going to do an evaluation on you. That's number one. So, then that evaluation could be used to your advantage. You'll be asked to complete an evaluation of the employer. So it's not a one-way street, it's always a two-way street of your internship experience. That tends to be called the exit interview, just in case they give you that word, then you know what's happening regarding that. You should update your resume to reflect your new experience, right? I don't want you, ladies and gentlemen, after you've done an internship and you leave it behind and you do not start writing bullet points as to what you did in the internship. If you can, keep a journal of the projects you worked on, because those could be background stories of behavioral questions you're asking answer in the future in terms of what you did. And of course, bullet points to help you write down the things you've done in that internship for now for you to apply to another internship or maybe a future job. Okay. And of course, we're here at the Career Center to help you in terms of reviewing your documents and giving you feedback. So of course, after you included the new things you've done and gain experience, have one of us review it and give you some feedback. And of course, last but not least, which is imperative, is goes back to the networking. Stay connected with their internship supervisors and your colleagues, right? You should not have, let's say you've done an internship last year and then they haven't heard from you for a year. Do not be that student. Reach out maybe 2 or 3 times in the year, check in with the internship supervisor and colleagues, because believe it or not, they might say, oh wait, I just have an opportunity, and because you have been visible and they remember who you are and you're pleasant to work with, etc., they might say, I want you to apply to that. It has happened to many of students, and that's why I'm giving you the suggestion to stay connected with your supervisors, your colleagues, but not only your supervisor and colleagues, even your professors in the future as well. Okay. And last but not least, like if you've done an internship experience, let us hear about it. We always give shout outs to students on Instagram, Facebook, if you are following us on social media. So you can fill out the form on tinyurl.com/landed an internship and help future BC students who may want to intern at the same place so they could get an idea of what did you do, like Clidade did earlier in the presentation, so you could get a better idea of how moving forward, like how busy season looks like, etc. They could give you the one-on-one tip regarding that. Okay, so I want to talk about safety in the internship search, which is important for the simple fact that there are 100 internships posted each year, and the college cannot pre-screen each posting. So I'm really talking about is employer red flags. You want to pay attention to that. You want to make sure that you're not being put in a position where it's an issue for you, right? So students use precautions when contacting and meeting potential employer. Only if they ask you to meet, only meet in public spaces when there are other people around. Go over our red employer flags in case you're uncertain. And even if you are still uncertain after reading the employer red flags that we present to students, email me. I'd rather you be cautious than not cautious at all, in terms of as you looking for your internship search, because your safety means a lot to us. Okay, so just keep that in mind. When in doubt, always follow your gut, but always reach out to one of us. You could email me, you could email the director, whoever, and then we'll get back to you in terms of information, right? So visit tinyurl.com/employer red flags for more information, or you could just email intern@brooklyn.cuny.edu with any type of concerns. So for example, if they ask you, hey, can you give us your state ID, your social security number, deposit this check before you start. These are common red flags. Do not do any of those things until you have done a full interview, and then they proceed to give you an offer, and then do that. Okay, you've been contacted by the human resources department of that company. So just always remember that. And in case in doubt, email me or intern@brooklyn.cuny.edu with any concerns, and it will be able to step in and give you solid advice for that process. Okay. So I'm going to stop it right here and ask if anyone has any questions.
Ashley asks, I graduate for the summer session September. What month to start applying for internships?
What month to start applying for internship? You're supposed to be applying right now because you're going to graduate soon, right? So you want to apply as soon as possible. So Brooklyn Navy Yard might be one of the places you might want to consider to apply for an internship, and others. And then you could simultaneously do your internship and do the summer session if you're taking classes for the summer. Keep in mind, there are some companies that still take students after graduation, but they're not the majority. So for example, HACU tends to take students after a couple months of graduating. So just apply. Is it too late to apply for summer internships? It's not too late, depending on the industry or the company. So this is your time, since we're in the month of April. Any last stragglers, apply as soon as possible, so for you to land those summer internships. So for example, some governmental agencies are still looking to recruit students. Some corporate agencies are still looking to recruit students. Some of the deadlines are the end of this month for those summer internships. So I would say go on Hire BC, go to the respective company sites and apply as soon as possible. And if you haven't had your resume checked out yet, go on Hire BC, upload that resume, or shoot us an email, and then we'll give you some feedback before applying. But this is your month to push in as much as possible for those summer internships. And like I mentioned before, City Year also, for those who are freshmen, have a Discovery City program as well. So you could apply for that. Their application deadline is in May, but we're having the tips. The one of the VPs is actually going to sit down and give you tips to apply for that. That's May 4th, just in case there are freshmen in this room who are interested in business and finance, to take that in consideration as well. That's a great question. Thank you for that.
Yeah, so Adrian asks, can we still set up meetings to review our resumes with someone?
Absolutely. That's what the Career Center is here for. You definitely could set up one-on-one appointments to have your resume be given feedback with. My email address is sabinesc@brooklyn.cuny.edu. You could shoot me an email or you could send an email to career news at brooklyn.cu.edu, and you could have that resume reviewed as well through those channels. So yes, you could have that one-on-one appointment. It'll be like Zoom, where you'll meet with a career coach, and then we'll review that. Okay, and then Billy, I actually put my email address there for you to be able to email me.
So there's a question that came up before. Sept asks, what are some of the in-campus internships?
That's a great question. So depending on the department, they do have that. There's something called the CUNY Culture Corp program. Has anyone heard of that before? You're shaking your head. Yes. So we have that. That's for the summer, where you get the chance to intern for one of the departments in CUNY. And the application, I think, is going to be next week, where you get to get paid $15 an hour. You get to the opportunity to work virtually or in person. That depends on, of course, COVID's regulation. And then you get the chance to work within one of the campuses. So that application is accepting the people in the program. How do you find it? It's tinyurl.com/CUNY Culture Corps 2021 to apply for that. So let me just type it in quickly for you. Okay, somebody did that for me. Perfecto. Thank you for you to apply, and that's within campus to gain those additional internship experiences. So there's opportunities out there, ladies and gentlemen. Please do not let it pass you by. The worst thing to do is not apply at all. Give yourself the chance to apply, and you never know, you might land that interview. But the first step is actually applying and see where the cards fall for you. So just keep that in mind as you move forward. Okay.
I wanted to know, once I graduate, would I still have the opportunity to meet with you or to send you a LinkedIn and speak more in depth?
That's a wonderful question. So after graduating from Brooklyn College, you do still have the chance to meet with the career coaches, but those sessions to meet one-on-one are limited, right? You will get probably 2 because of the magnitude of students that we have to meet throughout the year. And then we know that 2 will be enough, since if you're following and moving forward, but you have access to everything else, the fairs, the events. So keep that in progress. And of course, if you want to connect with me through LinkedIn, you're more than welcome to do so, and continue on those conversations after graduation. But the goal is to set the foundation now. And then after graduation, it'll be like a checkup regarding moving forward, if that makes sense. But that's a great question. But I would say limits up to, and then we know, because I know there's a couple of seniors in this room, we do have the month of the end of May and June just for the seniors to help prepare you as well for your job search and getting career ready. Number 1, have your resume ready, right? The center here to help you in terms of writing, not writing, but help you in terms of giving you resume feedback, how to move forward, etc. So that's number 1. Number 2, you want to start researching the industries or the companies of interest of you so you can apply. What that entails for me, I would say, put the name of the company, when are their deadlines, summer, fall, spring, whatever the case may be. If you know that they have been on campus before, if you have the recruiter's email address, or if they don't have IBC, put that in so you could start building your list to know what you're going to apply for. That's not that. If for any reason you're not too sure, you're still exploring, that's the whole purpose. You're trying to discover, that is fine. You're all going to be in that same boat. Do not feel any anxiety towards it or stressed out because you're not too sure as to where you want to move forward in terms of your career yet. It happens to the best of us. I will guarantee you the most successful people would say, I didn't know I was going to be whatever title it is when they were practically your age at this time, but they took opportunities and they just kept excelling and explored and have conversations, etc. So if you're in the exploratory stage, which you're discovering, that's 100% awesome and is amazing. We do have assessments for you to take, the color Q. as well as if you want to go to mynextmove.org, you take the assessment, and you could just think about it when you're taking this assessment. Do not think about what family members think about. Do not think about what society says or what you have an idea of. Answer based truly of what you like and dislike. And from that assessment, it could talk about career clusters that might be of interest to you, just for you to get moving and moving forward. And then the lovely thing about it, and I keep mentioning before, network. And networking is important. The reason why is, of course, you could get a mentor in the future, whatever the case may be. But think about it. Everyone here that's in the room with us today via this Zoom call, you guys are living knowledge. I would say living books. You could get the chance to speak to someone and get an idea of their chapter of their life, how they decided to move forward. So by networking, you get a chance to have those conversations with people in the field of your interests. And then having those conversations, you're able to analyze what they're saying. You're able to say what's good for me, discard the ones that is not good for me. And depending on the conversation, they could even introduce you to other people outside the field or even in the field that might be of interest to you. And that will be very helpful for you as you're gaining more knowledge in the field, as you're gaining references and things like that. So use that to your advantage as you move forward. So that will be the advice I give you all. If you don't remember anything that I mentioned today in this session, is to make sure that you are communicating and connecting with people that has a similar of your interests or beyond your interests, so you could get an idea. And last but not least, please do not forget SLC upcoming events that Vanessa just mentioned, to register to have a conversation SAP Global on April 29th. And of course, we have additional, as a Discovery Week later on this week, you do have Elena, who is the SLC president. Elena, please wave so they can see your wonderful face. There you go. Who's going to be moderating the panel for this week in terms of the employers, so what you're supposed to be doing. So it's a very good, robust group. Please do that and attend, of course, next week's SLC Vanessa's event regarding that. So I'm gonna put in the chat the dates and of course the times, just in case you need them, so you could apply as well, for you not to forget any of that. And if you RSVP'd for this event, I will send a recap email as well with all of the wonderful links, as well as the events and the dates and the titles, so you have access to it regarding the chat. And then Elena mentioned, if you have any additional questions about SLC, right, which is the Student Leadership Council for the Compliment School of Business, or Thursday event, please check them out at linkedin.com/in-compliment SLC, and then they could give you, of course, more information. I think they're a wonderful club. If you are not part of any student organization yet, please join. You'll be in good hands with the president as well as the rest of her team. Vanessa's part of the team as well. And then one person asked, do I need a webcam for any of these events? I would strongly suggest for you to start getting a webcam, especially if you're going to do interviews. A lot of interviews are going to be in virtually. So if you could invest in one, please do so. And if you can't right now, you could definitely email the student activities and see what they could help arrange. Maybe they have some discount codes, whatever, to help you with that. It is preferred. The reason why I say it's preferred to have the webcam on, especially with employers, so they could see your wonderful face, because it's hard for them as they're communicating just to see names. Even if, like, let's say you don't have access to a webcam, if you have a photo of yourself, if you could do that and have your wonderful name so they could see it, which I see some of you guys have done that, that is a stepping stone. Just seeing a blank canvas of just your first and last name, it is difficult for the employer to connect with you, right? And that's why I need you all to start practicing, is your connections with people. Since we're not on campus, we can't virtually just give a handshake, feel the energy in the room. It is a different situation right now because we're in Zoom or whatever platform. So please, if you could do that. If you're uncomfortable showing your background, I have Brooklyn College in my background just to show you could do it. If you don't want to do that, just put your beautiful, wonderful face as a picture so that at least could remember who you are. If you ask a question, they'll remember the faces versus the name. So thank you all again for taking the time and listening to me. My email address is again sabinesc@brooklyn.cuny.edu. Feel free to shoot me an email and I'll respond as quickly as possible. Okay. Thank you all and have a wonderful afternoon. Enjoy the sun and stay safe.
Make sure to check out the My Career tab on the BC Navigator app, where you can track your career progress based on the amount of credits you've earned, stay updated on upcoming events from the Magner Center, and watch our videos for insight and advice on your career field.